Welcome back to Doing Bart Things, and in this episode, um, this New Year's Eve episode, which I hope everyone is having a fantastic New Year's Eve, we're going to do a quick talk about video cards. And I think because video cards seem to be the biggest sort of thing happening, AMD is going to release some new processors. I figure I will give everybody sort of my last minute predictions for 2024, which some things are going to happen in the gaming PC industry, if you will, right away. And then some things are going to take a little longer, I think. But here's sort of where I think things are going to fall. So I do have a couple of articles actually here pulled up. So one is for a video card that I wasn't really on my radar. Could be an interesting video card though. It's the RX 7600 XT. So there's a 7600 and apparently AMD is going to be debuting an XT. And what I find interesting about it is 16 gigs of VRAM. That's actually really high. It's funny to me because this is as much VRAM as the 480 has. The 480 Super will have as much as like these very high end $1,000 graphics cards. Oh, excuse me. Old age kicking in. Um, I should be getting ready to stay up for the for New Year's, but I'm kind of tired. But I thought I would knock out a video. So that's interesting. Um, I think people should note this. NVIDIA is pretty stingy with the memory, and here's evidence A, right? So you have a what's really actually, now that I think about it, the 7700 XT I believe has 12 gigs. Does it not? Stand by. Got your 7000 series, 7700 XT. Yeah, it's only got 12 gigs. So the 7600 XT has more VRAM than what will definitely be the more expensive 7700 XT. Um, I think this card probably gets slotted into about 300 bucks, 300, 350 bucks, somewhere in there, depending on how confident they are in its overall performance. Um, it will go head to head with the 4060 Ti 16 gig card, right? But it's going to win. I mean, it already performs better, and now it's going to have more memory. Like the 4060, oh god, don't even get me started. I'm going to try not to go too far off tangent um, on Nvidia's pricing and how that has completely thwarted them and is just useless. So or stupid. Um, but I'll briefly touch on it only because that's one of the predictions we'll make for this next year. So from this article, they're talking about seeing this card by the end of January, um, which would make sense. I'm sure that they've got it. It's probably ready to go. Like I said, I would expect it to probably slot into that, $300 price range. It'll be at least $100 cheaper than the 7700 XT. It's street price, because I'm assuming it's not going to be as fast, right? I'm sure it's going to have somewhere in between these two and stream processors, and it'll be in the middle in capability. Um, so I'm thinking it will compete all right. Definitely with the 4060 pretty well. It'll sort of hold arc at bay. Um, so there you are. Like not really anything crazy to write home about. Just something to keep an eye on if you're in that price range and looking to buy a video card at the beginning of the year. Next deal is the Super Series, which I've talked way too much about, and basically what I will say about them, just sort of rounding out is again, I still think they're going to be too expensive, But I do expect that the price will come back. Nvidia is going to check their price a little bit. I don't think they like the sales of the 7900 XTX. So I expect I think they quit selling the 4080 altogether. The 4080 Super goes on sale for about 1,000. The 4070 Ti Super, man, excuse me again, will go on sale for about 800, maybe 900, but I'm suspecting 800 bucks, which again is ridiculous. You remember, like, that means that they overpriced the 4080 by $400 on top of it being like even the $800 price tag. They could go cheaper than this. Make no mistake. So yeah, it's way over, my opinion, again, but it's overpriced. But I think if you're really set on a 4000 series card, um, you know, the 4070 Ti Super is probably going to be the best bang for the buck. Um, the 4070 Super is literally just a 4070 Ti. I mean, it's almost it's almost copy paste what a 4070 Ti is, and it will replace the 4070 Ti in the lineup. It'll be priced cheaper, so it'll probably be at that $600 price point. They will probably take this card and go straight at the 7800 XT from AMD, basically in competition if you want to think about where they're going to compete. Um, and then the 4070 Ti Super, I'm thinking is going to be, like I said, 800 bucks is where I'm thinking they're going to put it if they're being aggressive. Um, if they're being Nvidia, they might edge that up to 850 or even 900. But I think 800 is where it should be. Logic dictates that's where it would be, and they're literally going to just stop selling the 4080. The 4080 will be gone. They're not going to drop the price on that to like 900 or anything like that. They're just going to sell the supers because they've been binning these chips, like they've just been holding on to them. The 4080, they basically stopped production on because they were selling so poorly. So they're just not going to fire production up again. They'll clear the shelves off the few 4080s that are left with a rebate, and then they'll be on their way. You can see the dates here. So I would say by the end of January, all those cards ought to be on the market. So Nvidia will have refreshed kind of their mid to high end cards. Um, Now that's the low hanging fruit, right? That's the easy stuff to predict for this next year. What else do I think will happen? Well, um, AMD may refresh the RX 7000 series. So think of it like it wouldn't be a 7900, it would be it wouldn't be an 8000. Maybe it's an 8000. Maybe they go up a step. Um, they still have some performance to wring out of their GPUs, just like NVIDIA has. So they may refresh them to get the price back to what they were. Um, when these supers release, and if they release for the prices that are being tossed around, AMD will have to respond. I don't think a 4080 Super, or I'm sorry, I don't think a 7900 XTX is a uh, is just a you know slam dunk against a 4080 Super at the same price. You really have to look hard and decide. I think a 4080 Super makes a pretty good case against a 7900 XTX at the same price. I personally still sort of err on the side 7900 XTX because I still think in raster performance it may actually be faster by a little bit. We'll have to wait for the benchmarks and see how this plays out, right? They are going to up the memory specs a little bit, that sort of thing. So I predict, uh, I do predict AMD will drop the price on the current 7000 cards. They'll drop it by about 100 bucks. So I think your 7900 XTXs will be about 900 bucks. I think they will slot them into those valleys of the NVIDIA cards just like they are today. So the 7900 XTX, for example, at $1,000 right now doesn't have a direct competitor at price point. The 4080 was 1200, and then they had a card at like 800, right? And AMD slotted a card in at 1,000, and that seems to be their pattern. So I think that they will reduce the price of the 7900 XTX because they can easily do that, right? And it's not that big a deal. So I think that's my prediction. They will probably do that early on. This is if they don't announce a refresh early. If they announce a refresh early, then they will probably keep the prices close to what they are today for those refreshed parts. But I don't think they've got a refresh ready sitting in the wings for these cards yet. I think it'll take a little bit. So that's something to hang on to. For the desktop market, RDNA 4. So the next GPU that's a new architecture from AMD, just speaking about AMD, I really don't think NVIDIA has much more else going on this year. I don't even think they might, but I am very skeptical. Like, NVIDIA doesn't really even need to release the 5000 series yet. They find themselves in an interesting position of they can really sit on the 5000 series until 2025 if they wanted to. Basically, a year from now, they can make the announcement for the 5000 series, and they're probably good to give themselves a chance to sell as many of these super cards as they can. Um, that said, there is something that could push them. AMD refreshing and dropping prices. If they do both, then AMD could push NVIDIA to go, okay, we have to announce these cards and get them going end of 2024, into 2025. We're not going to see physical samples, I think, of the 5000 series from NVIDIA in 2024. I would be surprised. I think they've got some ways to go with that. That's why they're refreshing the 4000 series in the first place. Um, I think if AMD will just open up their eyes and start slashing some prices to where they should be, like what they should do, they could make a dent on NVIDIA because their cards are not bad. These latest cards are actually decent. They didn't perform quite as well as they'd hoped, but that doesn't make them automatically bad cards. NVIDIA overpriced the hell out of everything, right? So they, they totally have the ability to compete, but they have to do it on price, and they've got the room to do it. It's just will they? So that's kind of where AMD is. And AMD is going to release RDNA 4, but they are not going to release a high-end RDNA 4 card. So this is also an interesting situation. So what may happen is they release the 8000 series instead of just a normal refresh, where they would call it like a 7950 XTX. They may release an 8000 series, and you'll have a mixed lineup. So the lower end cards may be RDNA 4 parts, and the upper end cards may be RDNA 3 or RDNA what they call 3.5, which basically is perfected and fixed RDNA 3. I say perfected and fixed. It's not that, again, RDNA 3 was necessarily completely busted, it just didn't meet its performance targets. If these do meet their performance targets, they could be 20, maybe 30% faster than what RDNA 3 was. And then that would put them in a favorable contest with these supercards for sure. They could actually charge around those prices. So that could happen. AMD might pull that. Now, I think they need to at some point. I just don't know when they do it. They need to do something because when NVIDIA does release their 5000 series, they need to have some kind of answer to get them to RDNA 5. RDNA 5, at least initial reports, what I'm hearing is it's very good, but they've got like 18 months to go. Like they've still got a lot of time before they get that card. So during that drought, they've got to, find something, or they've got to basically figure out a way to get there. And RDNA 4, the high-end RDNA 4 cards, they chose not to release. They were not going to really be that great. They're putting all their efforts into RDNA 5. these RDNA 3 parts are really, again, they're not that bad. So what they might do is they might double down on getting a refresh of RDNA 3. You could call it like RDNA 3.5, right? For the upper end. And then the lower end or mid range would be RDNA 4. This is not the first time that they've mixed architectures. They could totally do that. Um, and then that would be what their lineup would look like until RDNA 5 rolls around. Now, would that be competitive? With the 40 Super Series, absolutely. I don't see anything from a gains with the 40 Series that makes me think that NVIDIA is just going to walk off and leave AMD. That's not how this is going to work. We're talking 30 megahertz here, 60 megahertz there, like nothing to write home about. The 4090 is going to still just sort of be out there. If you're willing to pay 16, 1800 bucks, 2000 bucks, whatever it is, you get yourself a 4090 if they're available, you know. Uh, so there's that. And they're just going to be like, well, whatever, you know. I would be shocked if AMD delivered something that goes after the 4090. I don't think they're going to. And I think they're probably smart for that because I just don't think it's a big audience that wants to buy that expensive of a video card. I certainly don't. Um, and I'm still trying to figure out if how we got to $1,000 upper mid range cards is just beyond me. Anyway, what else? Let's see. Um, oh, Intel. Let's not forget Intel. Um, Intel again. They have the chance to maybe make a bit of a splash. So the next video card in their stack is what root is it's called a Battle Mage, I guess, is what the code name or whatever internal name for their next video card. It is due early this next year, so I would not be shocked if we get some sort of hint or announcement at CES that hey, this is coming. Um, it is supposed to be performance-wise in and around the 4080, probably the 4070 Ti Super, my full name, in performance, and very interestingly, maybe target a $600 price tag. If Intel pulls that off, and it is favorable against the 4070 Ti Super, they will have a winner. Their drivers have come a long way, so provided that they don't have any giant hiccups on launch, and $600 is a good price, they make a little bit of money off of that, and they can offer that across the board. Um, they've got some other people, other third-party vendors retailing these cards for them. I think they could do well. I really do because that's pretty strong performance for the dollar in comparison to what NVIDIA is offering. And I think it's strong compared to what AMD is offering. I think a 4070 Ti Super, because it's based off of the 4080, that 4080 tier of performance, I think that beats a 7800 XT. And AMD would have to lower the 7900 XT, I think, down to that price point in order to be competitive. But I think it would still be competitive. I think that it can be beat by that card. So Intel, their top end Battle Mage, if they call it Arc again, great, you know. But whatever it is, if it's in that performance area and the drivers continue to mature, um, they could have a winner on their hands. They could be a sudden like force in the GPU market, and man, that needs to happen. That really does need to happen. Now I'm going to give it to you like it is. Uh, it's going to be hard. Like for all I know, they could release that card at $600. The next day, AMD and Nvidia could both drop like their respective cards are just slightly better down to about that price, right? And just full Intel's plans. But I suspect Nvidia is too stuck up to drop their prices, and AMD also doesn't want to drop their prices. And I think they're probably gonna lean into the fact that Intel's still the newer name, and that people will not take the chance on buying a company with the newer name and the newer drivers. I think that is their mistake. I think Intel can definitely pull something off there. Again, their drivers have just done nothing but slowly improve and get better. And I think if they continue to do that, make sure that their drivers are good, make sure that their game support is good, release, just start executing and releasing these cards on time. If they don't quite perform up to what they need to, it's okay. Like we're still getting there. Um, I really, really, really hope that again that card is in that realm of performance. If it can match a 4080 tier card, because let's face it, it's 4070 Ti Super. It's a 4080 is what it is. It's basically a 4080. It's that same die. It's a little bit cut down, um, but that's what it is. So if they could match or beat this card, and Nvidia is going to charge $800 for it, and yet you can go get the Intel equivalent performance roughly for $200 less, I think Intel could make some waves potentially. We'll have to see. And I think that rounds out the video card area. And again, I think Intel's kind of the dark horse, the one to watch. I have, because of how AMD and NVIDIA have acted over the last year, I do think Intel has a shot at this. I really do. I just think they need to be truthful about the performance. They need to price the card appropriately for where they are in the market, and I think they could have some real success. I think the success could surprise them when that thing goes flying off the shelves. I do, because there is, I think, a pent up desire for that level of performance, because that provides an actual upgrade over something like a 2080 or even a 3080 a little bit. And people are so hacked off that by the prices, they may run out and go, well, like let's make a statement on this. Um, so remains to be seen, but that would be kind of the hope anyway. Um, what else do I think? Uh, so CPU wise, Zen 5. So the next iteration of the Zen CPU is coming. Intel doesn't really have an answer for this yet. It's going to be out first or second quarter. So I would expect plenty of stock in hand by March, April, May, somewhere around in there. And these are going to be really strong chips, supposedly. Supposedly. Again, wait for benchmarks. Um, Usually, if something is really good, a company like AMD is not very afraid to tell you that it's going to be really good. So um, the leaks have been pretty forthcoming. Not Zeb. Good grief. Zen 5. Um, you know, they've hyped it. Oh my God. Uh, the ads. Holy cow. Okay. So, as I understand it, we're supposed to get a multiple double digit IPC increase. That IPC increase from the leaks and the slides and things that I've seen could be in the 20% range. Could be. 15% is kind of the expected basement, maybe. And then that could go up to 20% or maybe even over 20%. 30% is ludicrous. 30% is not happening. I would be shocked if we get to 25%. That would be like, holy smokes. They really had somebody needs to give that engineer a raise, like who made that happen, right? The yields were good. But I do think 20% is possible, and I think 15 to 20% is really kind of where it'll fall. So maybe 18%, right? That's pretty substantial. That's a substantial IPC increase. It's going to work on the AM5 socket, and we should know relatively quickly. I don't think AMD is going to be bashful about it. They don't need to be. Um, they can come out with that, and uh, it's going to soundly throttle Intel. Raptor Lake refresh, I don't think is going to be able to really uh, stand up to it. Um, I just don't think, if you adding Zen 4, Zen 4 trades blows, tad bit slower, trades blows. So I think Zen 5, if you give it that big of an IPC increase, there's supposed to be a clock speed regression, but it doesn't sound like a big clock speed regression. It just sounds a little bit like 100, 200 megahertz, right? I even heard something recently that their latest yields were surprisingly good, and so they may not even regress that much at all, clock speed wise, to get that IPC increase, which I'll take IPC all day long over clock. Clock usually is what, when you clock something up higher, that's what generates more. Um, that's what generates more heat, more power usage. Those higher clocks usually, like they'll take an architecture and go, "Well, we're going to clock it to the moon," and then they shove all the heat and power to it. I mean, look at Intel's; they can get you 6 gigahertz, but look what they got to do to do it, right? So that's kind of where that is. That's exciting. That should be good. Now, what about Intel? Um, Intel is going to take a rough first half of the year in the CPU market. I don't think, I don't even think though, like if you have any modern processor, you probably are very, uh, it's a tough case to make to upgrade, right? Especially for gaming. I mean, if you've got like a 12 700K or a 5000 series Zen CPU, those chips are still very strong. Like it's a pretty tough case to tell you you need to upgrade from that, right? Zen 5 maybe gives you that upgrade case. The next Intel CPU slated that would probably give you an upgrade case will be on desktop is the Arrow Lake CPU. I believe it's up. Yeah, Alder Lake was that. So yeah, Arrow Lake. I believe it's Arrow Lake. We can actually hold on. Let's look up Arrow Lake. Let's make sure I'm talking right. Okay, yeah. So Arrow Lake. Uh, there's an HS code. Right. This doesn't really help me very much. Oh, come on, video cards. I'm a human. Come on. Good gravy. Okay. Right. So I think um, Arrow Lake is touting 30%. They are touting a very high gain in IPC um, over Raptor Lake. So that could be the major upgrade that Intel gets. So that would definitely put Intel potentially back in the driver's seat over AMD, at least for a time. Now, I think we get Zen 6 in another 12 months, 12 to 18 months. So it's going to be leapfrog, right? Is what this sounds like to me. But that's if it meets predictions. What's really scary is that Meteor Lake, okay? Uh, let's not let me highlight that. That's weird. Okay. But Meteor Lake was supposed to be the new architecture that was going to bring in this new, like it was going to be the first of this kind of new architecture, sort of to test the waters. Meteor Lake didn't even make it to desktop. They didn't even put it on desktop, and the reason was the previous gen, so 14th gen and 13th gen, actually performed better than Meteor Lake at higher voltages. So they are making uh, laptop parts, but they're not making desktop parts for Meteor Lake because it just didn't make sense. Meteor Lake, um, Meteor Lake just did not compete well with Raptor Lake Refresh, which also tells you it doesn't compete very well against AMD CPUs. So, not to say that Raptor Lake doesn't perform well, like it does. I mean, you, anybody that owns Raptor Lake, I will I would be willing to bet when Arrow Lake comes out, you're still going to be a little bit like, man, I don't know if that justifies the price to upgrade. CPUs are just like this now. You have to wait a couple years before something is a big enough upgrade to truly justify the price, unless you just want to upgrade. So, having said all that, I think if you are on a Raptor Lake CPU or Raptor Lake refresh, that's 12th, 13th, 14th gen, I think, and you want to stay Intel, your next potential upgrade isn't until the end of this next year. Um, Towards the end of this next year, Arrow Lake is due in 2024, so you could have a shot at it. AMD folks, your next CPU could be an upgrade that is coming first half of 2024. I'm guessing the non X3D variants will probably be available maybe around March, April, something like that. Kind of like Zen 4 was. So that's kind of what I think on the CPU end. Um, Other stuff, we could see some new motherboards because, they usually like to refresh their lineup right around the new release of things time. Um, I think if everything goes according to what it's laid out right now, um, I think NVIDIA is going to keep on doing NVIDIA things. Um, I think they will be in a better position. They're going to sell more GPUs this year because they reduced the price on the similar level of performance where they should, sort of. Um, until they refresh their lower end, which I'm assuming they will do, that's going to suck, and I would stay away from it probably. I don't like the 4060s, 4070s really that much. 4070 Super might be okay. Depends again on the price, where they price it. AMD, I think, has a chance to pick up some market share in video cards. I think they need to be smarter about how they price things. And if they are, then they will reap the rewards of that. Intel in the video card market, man, they could make a push. They really could. It just depends on how aggressive they get with Battle Mage. Um, I think they got to be careful not to lose money, but I think they need to shove that hardware into people's face. Get those Intel video cards out there because that will get people on your upgrade time schedule, and I think that's good. I think that's actually a good thing for typical hardware enthusiasts or people who buy hardware. Um, they're on the right track with Arc. Now that they had a bad launch, Arc was tough. It was their first video card launch, and I don't know when. They used to have video cards like a long time ago. Um, I think it was on regular PCI slots, if I remember correctly. I can't remember. Anyway, but um, the Battlemage GPU, if it delivers around the stated performance and they price it correctly, could really come in and cause some issues. It could disrupt the market a little bit, and that would not be a bad thing at all. That would be good. It'd be good for them because hopefully they can make some money and get some market share. And it would be good for us because we need that third player in that market. They need to beat each other up so that way we can get these prices on these components down to where they ought to be. CPU wise, AMD looks to be having the makings of a really, really strong year. Zen 5 shouldn't compete badly against Arrow Lake necessarily. It could look a lot like Zen 4 to Raptor Lake right now. Like the CPUs are out there right now. Even when Arrow Lake comes out, it could look like that. So um, I think that AMD needs to execute and come out with Zen 5. I think it could be really good. Intel, on the other hand, needs to weather the storm, and they need to really make sure that Arrow Lake is good. Arrow Lake needs to be everything that's made out to be. They need to convert people from AMD over to the Intel camp with Arrow Lake. Arrow Lake needs to be as good as slated. They need that 30% IPC increase that they've hinted at to actually be true and be 100% confirmed. And they need no malarkey. Like it really needs to work out right. So um, I predict that at least from initial hearing, that's kind of what's going to happen. And then the following year, if we get Zen 6, Arrow Lake and Zen 6 will go at it. I mean, again, it just looks like a leapfrog deal is starting to happen now, which is great. Like, that's really good for us. We need that same thing in the GPU market, honestly. So I think it's highly likely that GPUs stay overpriced. NVIDIA continues to lead, and then they come out the 5000 series, and we get the same thing with the 4000 series, just with the 5000 series all over again. I think that's probably very likely. I think the next likely scenario that would be good for consumers, Intel comes in and disrupts a bit, AMD gets very aggressive with their pricing, and then NVIDIA is officially put on notice that both of these companies are ready to play and they're ready to get after it. That would be great because I think then the market would turn very pro-consumer. So, but I do think that's probably not what's going to happen exactly. Um, I think we get a okayish um, Battle Mage, which is close to that Rumble performance. Maybe it doesn't quite make it. So the price tag is not as attractive as it otherwise would be. And I kind of think AMD just sort of sticks where they are because they compete well enough and they want to make the margin on their cards that NVIDIA has allowed them to make. So that's kind of unfortunately what I think is going to happen. But I do hope that Intel comes in and nails it. So anyway, guys, that's it. That's kind of my predictions, or I guess ramblings about this next year. Keep your eyes open in January. I think we'll get a lot of information at CES, which is kind of tradition. A lot of these companies sort of start, talking about what they're going to do for the next year, and products are going to release. We're going to have a lot of new releases in January for video cards, which I think could be very telling. So keep a very close eye on what Intel releases to see if they actually come out with that new Battlemage GPU, and if they do, and it's really good, then that could get really interesting. But I think they're the only ones who have who have the potential to really disrupt the market a little bit. Otherwise, I think we're in a two-horse race again for a whole another year, and stagnation in the GPU market. CPU market going to be great. I think AMD is going to pull out in front pretty decidedly, and then I think the AMD, I think that lead will last them until basically quarter 4, and then Intel release Arrow Lake, and I think that's when things probably change. Nothing I've heard about Arrow Lake makes it sound like it will be bad. So that's kind of that go. Anyway, guys, have a fantastic new year, an awesome 2024. I look forward to making more videos this next year, hopefully on a more regular basis. We can bring you more of these low rent productions. So if you like, leave a like and leave a subscribe. That would be amazing. You join the incredible people that I already know, all like 54 of them or 55 of them, 56, 58, I think. I don't know. Like, oh my gosh, we're starting to grow. This is incredible. I can't believe people were willing to sit there and just listen to me ramble. It's amazing. But I'll play with the camera. We're going to get better at doing this stuff next year. I'll get videos down into, the 10, 15-minute range more commonly. So that way, it's more easy to consume. Maybe I'll start making some shorts and stuff. Um, sky's the limit. We can do whatever we want. So I'm beholden to nobody on this. So maybe my wife. I don't know. Anyway, guys, take it easy. The best for you and yours. Don't do anything that will get you in trouble. Please don't drink and drive. That's just again, it's it's 2023, and Uber is just a phone app away. So no reason to endanger anybody. That tends to cut all the fun of the new year short. So take it easy, and we'll see you on the flip side.